The Borg are perhaps considered the ultimate villains of Star Trek, ever since their impressive and scary first appearance in the 1989 Q Who episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. The creepy cybernetic humanoids have been a constant problem and concern for the Federation and other galactic species. The Borg Collective was also so intimidating due to their ultimate goal, this being the atonement of perfection through a forcible assimilation of other species. However, with so much power and so many species already assimilated by the time the USS Enterprise D and Starfleet first encountered them, we have to ask the big question: where did the Borg come from? A species this powerful did not just start yesterday. It's also already been made clear in the Star Trek universe that the Borg have been around for quite some time, especially in the Delta Quadrant, where it appears the species originated, or was it somewhere else entirely? In today's Star Trek Explained video, we'll look at the origins of the Borg. Welcome to Trek Central, I'm your host Captain Jack, and let's get into it. Before we warp into this video, if you want to keep up to date on all the latest Star Trek news, lore and more, then make sure to hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media for daily updates on the Star Trek universe. As always, please let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, because if you're talking about Star Trek, then we want to hear about it. Okay, engage. Ultimately, the Borg's precise history and origins are clouded in the official Star Trek canon. As such, we'll explore from other sources in the Star Trek's extended media in this video. But right now, let's stick to canon facts. We know the Borg originated in the Delta Quadrant. According to the Borg Queen seen in Star Trek First Contact, the original species of the Borg were simple, plain life forms. They had been developing for thousands of centuries before that of the 24th century. Ultimately, this species evolved into a mixture of organic life with cybernetic enhancements. At the end of the 14th century, the Borg had only assimilated a handful of star systems in the Delta Quadrant. Thanks to the history of the species known as the Vodwar, we learned that they had early encounters with the Borg. Star Trek's beta canon, aka the extended universe, which is made up of comics, books, video games and more, contains a much more expanded history of the Borg Collective, especially regarding the origins of the species. Remember, this is from books and as such is not canon compared to what you see on screen in the Star Trek universe. In fact, due to the ever-changing nature of Star Trek's extended universe, there are multiple suggestions as to what could be the true origin of a Borg Collective. Of course, we're going to have to take a look at them. A small disclaimer, due to most of the beta canon, aka extended stories, being from books and comics, we don't have much material to work with in terms of what we can show you in the video. As such, please keep in mind we'll use some footage from other parts of the Star Trek universe as visual aids on screen. Thanks everyone, enjoy. On one account, the Borg was brought about by a disease on another planet. This unidentified world had its inhabitants struck down by a deadly disease that slowly killed the entire population. As such, the planet's scientists developed a bioorganic regenerator. This nanotechnology would be injected into the subject's circulatory system and eradicate the disease. It would then rebuild the patient's crippled body. Sounds easy, right? The first experiment was a success. However, the process began to change the test subject. The female of the species was made even stronger, with the experiment replacing her body with technology and giving her the drive and determination to share her gift with others. This is where the Borg began. The experiment quickly became out of control and the entire planet was assimilated in a short time. The population was transformed into drones and led by the initial test subject, who became the first Borg Queen. There is another Borg origin story that is similar to the disease. It also deals with the concept that people from several planets were struck down with a terrible disease. No cure was found from whatever it was they were facing. Scientist Dr. Mezezek came up with an ingenious operation. He placed the disease's suffering in a type of suspended animation and established a research base near the event horizon of a black hole. Seeking more information about the disease, the doctor would send out starships through wormholes to capture subjects and run experiments on them to search for a cure. But why have a base near a black hole, you might be asking? Well, due to the black hole's gravitational time dilation effect, the Doctor could coordinate centuries of research on science ships he sent out. Back at the base, it only took days. Unfortunately, Dr. Menezek's daughter, Danzek, was the primary test subject for his experiments. They were integrated into the technology and biological components of the numerous races kidnapped for the experiments. The experiment backfired for the Doctor. Danzek became super powerful following the experiments done of them. They returned to the space station while controlling a group of cybernetically enhanced test subjects like herself. In a brief confrontation, the space station was destroyed. Danzek, now queen of the cybernetic subjects, escaped through a wormhole. Unfortunately for her, the wormhole was affected by the temporal distortion generated from the exploding space station, disrupting it and sending her somewhere in space and time. This story was told through the TOS comic book Side Effects. While not making it clear that it was the Borg, it's heavily suggested so, especially as the last panel suggested that the character of Danzek will develop into the Borg Queen, or rather a Borg Queen. So while I'm not saying that 100% this is the origin of a Borg Collective, it is heavily implied in this comic. The story of the Star Trek Legacy video game, no, not the hopeful series, also had an origin story of the Borg. Vulcan scientist Trestrail discovered the origin of the Borg Collective during her attempt to become the new controlling entity. Her attempt was to mold the known galaxy into a realm of pure logic. Naturally, this would backfire, as common sense would suggest. Trestrail entered a deep meditative state, and she successfully melded with the Borg Collective consciousness. Trestrail discovered that the origin of a Borg Collective lies with a human-built machine known as Voyager, the original NASA Voyager 6 probe. Ultimately, this probe fell into a black hole where space and time bent. In some miraculous way, the machine survived. A race of living machines found the probe and would alter it. Due to the programming being a mystery, they attempted to understand it the best they could. The living machines returned it to its creator, but it could find nothing. Due to this, the probe decided that all carbon-based life was an infestation on the creator's universe. Therefore, it was deemed that assimilation was its only useful purpose. Assimilation being tools to learn and grow. This is where the Borg began, cataloguing all carbon-based life and their technology. The Borg was sent out as heralds to find its creator, learn all that's learnable, and return that information to Voyager for assimilation. The collective grew, so the necessity for a single voice became the only logical recourse. While looking for a solution, the collective found that the females of certain species displayed a mental prowess, enabling them to sift through the thousands of voices and bring order to chaos. The collective would install these females as a process of information. As such, a Borg queen was born, and the rest of the Borg Collective is history. Perhaps the most popular Borg origin story comes from the Star Trek Destiny series of books. This event takes place in 4527 BC and involves the NX-02 Columbia, yes, the one from Star Trek Enterprise. In 2156, the Columbia was under the command of Captain Erica Hernandez, who was involved in the United Earth-Romulan War along with Starfleet and other species. However, the ship was ambushed while escorting a mining colony. The Columbia was critically damaged and lost most of her crew, leaving the ship to make the journey to the nearest inhabited planet at near faster-than-light speeds. Unfortunately, relative time dilation caused the ship to arrive in 2168, but only 63 days had passed aboard the ship. Arriving at the planet of Erigol, the crew of the Columbia met the species known as the Kalia. This species was very technologically advanced. However, they were conscious about remaining hidden from galactic affairs and did not wish to be discovered. As such, they informed the crew of the Columbia that they would never be allowed to leave the planet. While Captain Hernandez and some of her crew were willing to accept this, others were not. Several Columbia crew members and the Mako officers staged a mutiny against the captain's orders to cooperate with the Kalia. In a mutiny, they destroyed a Kalia city and broke the species' ongoing intergalactic communications project known as the Great Work. This set in motion a chain of events that resulted in Erigol's star going supernova and destroying Erigol's planet. Columbia attempted to escape the supernova via a subspace tunnel. Unfortunately, the remaining crew members were killed due to hyperphasic radiation, leaving the abandoned ship to crash land in the Delta Quadrant on a barren world. The Columbia itself would not be found until 2373. Meanwhile, the only survivors of the Columbia were those on the Kalia city ships of the Mantellus and the Axion, which entered subspace tunnels but deposited them in the Delta Quadrant in 4527 BC and in the Beta Quadrant in 1519 BC, respectively. This is where the origin of a Borg comes about. It has to do with the Kalia. A Kalia known as Sidin would forcibly bond with 3 Columbia crew members, Lieutenant Carl Greylock, Kiona Thayer, and Mako Sergeant Gage Pembleton, in an attempt to survive the destruction of the Kalia city ship, Mantellus. Sidin was reduced to a state of pure hunger, having already murdered her Kalia compatriots, who survived the city ship's destruction. The Kalia used her advanced technology to possess the minds and bodies of the human and transform them into the first drones. Later in the same year, the local population of Arahaz arrived near the original crash site. As such, the species known as the Kinder became the first target for the newly formed collective. Sadly, the consequence of the final free thought of Lieutenant Greylock, who vowed that he would never be a cyborg, it imprinted upon the collective consciousness. As such, the new collective entity referred to itself as the Borg. Ultimately, the origins of Borg had not been confirmed. Star Trek canon does not have anything concrete to say about the topic. Instead, we know the Borg have been around for a long time, especially if a Vodwa species in the Delta Quadrant would know about them. Captain Erica Hernandez's interactions with the Borg and the intelligence she provided during the Borg invasion of 2381, in an extended canon I might add, of course, backs up the Destiny origin story, as that is where it is from. However, there is also information about the Borg assimilation of the Hirogen homeworld around 110,000 BC. Additionally, another story details a possible Borg preserver conflict that dates back to billions of years ago. Ultimately, there is a lot of contradicting information about the true origin of the Borg. A simple way to explain this is that some have speculated that the Borg are not merely a single evolution, but like a reoccurring humanoid form in the galaxy. Essentially, it is something that always develops throughout the galaxy and will do so again, and again. Personally, I'm a big fan of the Star Trek Destiny series of novels and how they explain the concept of the Borg, but it is a little convoluted and only really makes sense if you know who the Kalia are and what they had to do with it. It's also a tragic origin story, I think, especially how humans were inevitably responsible for creating one of their deadliest enemies. Maybe one day we'll learn more about the true origins of the Borg Collective. So, what do you think about the origins of the Borg? What makes more sense out of all the possible ideas we've presented today? Let us know in the comment section below. If you want to keep up to date on all the latest Star Trek news, lore, and more, then hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media or join our community Discord server. For now, I've been Jack, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Live long and prosper, my friends. Goodbye.